the season hasn't really been over that long, but when you kind of reflect on what you guys were able to achieve with how short of a time you were all together, what are maybe some of your positive takeaways on what you guys were able to do?
Um, I would want to start with our, you know, the guys that were here before me, right? I feel like it wouldn't be fair to not talk about them, right? For them to welcome, us in, me, Karis, and Terrence, and obviously I'm speaking from my perspective, but to welcome us in and kind of allow us to kind of not implement our ways, but grow with them and kind of grow together. Sure, we had some ups, we had some downs, we had some great moments, some low moments, but for us to continue to grow through injury, I want to say grow through youth, but our young guys are really good, and to witness them kind of grow through some growing pains has been awesome, right? And obviously, being valued after being traded is something that some people don't really find. So I'm obviously super grateful for that, but obviously super grateful for my teammates because we did get to achieve some great things. Obviously, we didn't get to our end goal of winning a championship and getting into the playoffs, but success isn't linear, right? You got to fall, you got to feel these hard times, and I think the best part about failure is that you have all summer to remember that feeling, and when things get tough, persevere and push through that by remembering the feeling of failure. And I think this group is going to be a strong one moving forward. I think we have a lot of great young pieces that you can build on, and obviously injuries you can't really control that.
Right.
So moving forward, I'm excited for what this organization is looking to build moving forward.
You had Quinn earlier in your career. What did you kind of feel like you got out of the experience of having him as your coach this time around?
Yeah, I mean, have you ever moved away and came back and reunited with your best friend? I mean, that's an exaggeration for a coaching. Obviously he's like my boss, right? But coming back around, there's you kind of smile when you're in practice and you hear familiar lingo or plays that you saw in Utah. And I think coming back and playing for him has just been a awesome experience, right? Someone that knows you, knows your game, knows your intentions, where you can kind of just fall into a groove of being yourself, right? And I think you guys have seen that, whether if I was yelling at someone on my team, someone on the other team, at the refs, the passion that I play with, it allowed me to get to that point quickly. But I think this situation is kind of unique, right? When I first got to Utah, we were under 500 and kind of were building to a young team. Gordon Hayward had just left the Jazz, and I kind of look at this as not a similar situation, but you're kind of putting your pillars and your foundation into a place that you can build a culture that has longevity, right? And I think that's always been on the forefront of Quinn's mind, and he's done a tremendous job of starting that here. And I'm excited to continue to grow and be a part of that and work through. Obviously, this is a tough time. Not making the playoffs isn't a good feeling, but I think I'm excited. I know I'm excited to work with everybody and continue to build that foundation so that we do have a strong structure moving forward.
You mentioned continuing to build for this team and this organization. What's the next step for that going into next year?
They might have to pay me a lot more money to give you answers on that one. But I think for what you have, right, from what I know, right, from a player's perspective, is you have to continue to get better, right? We have great young pieces, so their growth is extremely important, right? Whether that's us getting together in the summers or constant communication or them going away. And I don't know what guys pay for what. I know Dyson is Australian, Zach is French, clearly. But that aspect of, I think you get better at basketball by playing basketball, but constantly being a cohesive, connective group. I think just because the season ends doesn't mean we all break communication. We actually have iPhones and can FaceTime each other. That communication is always important in trying to come to get together. and I think, you know, the mesh with the older guys that we have, you know, you continue to have growth over the summer, and that's done by getting together, communicating. Obviously, then when August, September comes around, you kind of migrate back to your home state or Atlanta for all of us, and it's going to be done together. And I know that because I've been with Quinn before, and he does a great job of kind of getting a group to come together to build for a bigger goal. And I think with that goal and vision for us, I think it starts with, you know, getting this group together as much as we can. I've only been here since February, and I think we've made some strides. Obviously, this is a business, and you almost wish like I had more time to kind of do that. But I think for us, it's getting a little bit better every single day, and starting with those young guys and having competitive environments, whether that's in the summer, playing against each other, or preseason, or, you know, August and September where you're playing pickup, and you have these competitive environments where I don't want to say it may get nasty, but, you know, this is a game, and we're men, and I think you got to continue to bring those competitive edges out of each other, because that's where growth really comes from.
You mentioned the kind of getting together and staying connected. You and Onyeka have sort of a mutual kind of line with that. Just what are you maybe hoping to work with him on this summer, especially from what he was able to show, you know,
Yeah,
the
I'm
second
sick
half?
of seeing him. Right? I don't know how much else. No, me and Onyeka have been close before. You know, I got to Atlanta, right? I've been able to be out in LA and work out in the summer, and we kind of work out with the same person. Yeah, so I'm going to see a lot of him, and I do not worry about getting too competitive with him. I think we both do a good job of telling each other about each self or ourselves. I'm excited to see his growth, because you look at where the season started for him and where he ended up, and he's just scratching the surface, right? I tell him that. I'm like, it's amazing how good you are, because, you know, you're just doing this off raw talent, right? When you connect all the pieces together, it's going to be extremely impressive what you can do. So, yeah, he's one individual that I'm sure I'll be seeing a lot of, and I'm excited to see the growth of where he takes off to.
George, will you be watching the playoffs and maybe looking at your former team, or are you going to take a little break from basketball?
Who told you to ask that question? I'm a basketball junkie, right? I'll probably take a couple of days to myself, but yeah, I think it's inevitable to not watch it. Watching them specifically, I don't know if I'm going to circle my calendar of when to watch them. I mean, obviously I have good friends over there. If I can, you know, cropped out the screen and not watching some people and watch, I'll do it. But no, I'm going to watch the playoffs in whole. I mean, I think it's a good way to stay motivated and continue to learn and grow. I think by watching basketball, you can kind of improve and see how teams are doing things. So when we get there, we'll be prepared.
George, being here since February, has there anything that was maybe the most surprising to you since being on the team?
You know, being in Atlanta in February, where I could walk out on my back porch and it was 75 and sunny, I've never had that before. Right, Steve, where we come from,
Right.
yeah, you got a winter jacket on in February, and you're like saying WTF. So I didn't have to do. Actually, I was saying WTF, but like, wow, it's so warm. This is crazy. But no, to answer your question, I think I was surprised. Well, I shouldn't say surprised, but, you know, really pleasantly surprised at how, you know, talented the raw talent that this group has. And I think if we can continue to grow and work together and have that all, you know, cook up at the right time, I think the sky is the limit for this team. And I think, you know, getting here in February, like I said before, when the season ends, you're almost like, damn, I wish I would have had a little more time to continue to grow with this group, because I think, you know, we had a lot of great things strumming up. Obviously, injuries are one thing. I think the biggest thing that I'm excited about is, like, you look back and you see JJ, and I haven't seen him in his uniform just unless it was picture day, and I'm like, don't be teasing me now. Maybe you're in picture day, like, because that's going to be a great additional piece in the horses that we have, you know, that were out with injury. I'm excited to see where that leads us.
When you look back, though,
Last one,
sorry.
please.
when you look back at the process of sort of going through a midseason trade for the first time in your career, if you look back on it 5-10 years, what's going to be sort of the standout memory of that whole process of switching teams?
Yeah, don't get traded. No, no, I think the best part is like you just always have to be yourself, right? And I think the biggest thing for me is obviously the trade was a shock to me, but if you can come in and be your true self, especially as a veteran, like you have value. You've proven what you can do, and just try to bring that value and be as much of a giver as you can. I think a lot of guys get traded and they kind of internalize it and want to be like, I have to protect myself, but don't let that tarnish who you are, right? And I think that's the biggest thing for me is I came in here and kind of like submit to the team, right? Like how can I help us get better? And it kind of was like a great scenario, right? People let me be me. They let me run around, scream, shoot threes, be aggressive, and 5-10 years from now, I think I'll look back at this and be like, wow, I got traded to Atlanta, and it was kind of something that was life changing, but probably one of the better things for my career.
Thanks.